Okay, so welcome back. This is another episode of the Professional Spotlight series. I'm Jesse Bayer of Abundant Living Ecuador. We're a real estate and development company located in Southern Ecuador in the Loja, Vilcabamba area. I am pleased to be joined today by Jose Alberto Ampuero. Jose is a friend, an attorney in Guayaquil, somebody that I've worked with on quite a few occasions over the years. Going all the way back probably to 2013. He's a very competent lawyer, somebody we've recommended to a lot of clients, and who's always done a great job. So we wanted to have Jose on today to talk about all sorts of legal aspects of the law here as it relates to foreigners. So again, Jose is a bilingual Guayaquil-based attorney. He has expertise in visas, in real estate, in business law. He's also a trial attorney, does quite a bit of litigation. So Jose is a very experienced attorney here. Again, someone we highly recommend. And we're going to have a chat today about sort of all things Ecuador as it relates to the law. So Jose, I very much appreciate you taking the time. Please introduce yourself and we'll get going.
Hi, Jesse. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I have almost 15 years in practicing few types of law, corporate law. I do immigration law. I do criminal procedures, civil procedures. I'm a trial lawyer. My expertise is on quite a few branches of the law. So based in Guayaquil, I have an office with various other lawyers who work for me. I'm the head of the office, and I'm at your service.
Yeah, and just to clarify for people, because where I'm from, attorneys specialize almost always in one thing. The legal system in Ecuador is much simpler than it is in the United States. There isn't the same level of volumes of laws that we have back home. And so it's very common here for attorneys to have their hats in several arenas, as Jose does. So thank you for that, Jose. Again, thank you for joining us. Let's jump right in. Again, this is an English speaking show. Obviously, people who are watching this are going to be speaking English. Probably most of them do not live here. They might be looking at Ecuador, considering moving here, considering doing business here, things like that. So let's jump right into immigration. Talk a little bit about the visas. I know the laws just changed in the last week or so. I don't know how different they are yet at this point. But is Ecuador easy to immigrate to, and what are some of the parameters there?
Yes, I think that Ecuador, it's a very friendly country for expats, for people looking to live here in Ecuador. There are various types of visas. The most commons for foreigners, it's the investment visa, for example. Right now, government is requiring certificate, a time deposit certificate of $42,500, 42K and a half, in any bank or financial institution of the country, and you have to leave that for 2 years, 2-year time deposit. And then just for having that money, you are granted for an investor's visa. This is the most common visa for people coming to Ecuador. There are other types like work visa, but you of course need to have an employer, legal contract, labor contract, and also if you have a relative here like a spouse or kids, siblings, you can also apply for visas granted on or based on these family ties, right? It's not very complicated. They just ask for you to bring the criminal record from your country of origin, translated and apostille. With that and all the other requirements depending on the type of visa, you can be here with no trouble at all.
Okay. And is the other visa options that they used to have, I'm kind of out of the game at this point, Jose. Are they still there? So like the rentier and the professional visa, are those still good options for people?
Yes. There's a student visa. There's the pension visa for people who are retired and they get their monthly income from the Social Security in the States or wherever they are. There are visa for people who have professional degrees. If the university they graduated from, it's in our system, recognized by our legal system as a valid. It's not just any university. There's a list, but it's very wide list. So most of the most important universities are listed. So usually there's no trouble with that requirement. There's also a special visa for scientists or professors, university professors, people who will come and make a contribution from of knowledge to the country. Those people have also granted a visa. I also mentioned the student visa. If you come here and you start in a university here, college here, you can also be on up to 2 years studying, and you can renovate, you can renew the visas.
Okay. And the resident visas that are 2 years, the temporary resident visas, at the end of those 2 years, I can apply for permanent residency, or how does that work?
Yes, after you finish your temporary visa, if you want to stay more time in the country and you want to, let's say, stay here living, you can apply for the permanent visa, which will give you no time limit permanence in the country. You can stay as much as you want.
Okay. And are those under the same conditions after the 2 years, or do the conditions change?
Well, it's now it's 21 months. After 21 months of being temporary visa, with a temporary visa, you can apply for a permanent visa just after 21 months.
And if I have, like, for example, you use the example of a bank CD, for the investor visa, people can also qualify through opening a business, through buying property. So there's a few ways to qualify for the investor visa, but whatever asset you're using, let's say it's a bank CD in the example that you gave, after the 21 months, after the 2 years, I guess you can start applying after 21 months, but the visa expires after 24 months. Yes. At that point, if I want to extend to live here into a permanent resident visa, do I have to maintain that asset? If it's a CD, does that have to stay does those funds have to stay in the CD, or
not anymore?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yes. Once you get the temporary visa, after 21 months, you can apply for the permanent visa, and you only have to demonstrate that you have the means to support yourself, and you're not going to be a burden to the state.
Perfect. So, and that does that also apply for real estate? So if I buy a property and I back my investor visa with a property, at the end of those 2 years, and I want to convert to a permanent residency visa, can I sell that property and still maintain my visa?
Yes. Afterwards, yes, you can.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's a great change, because I know it didn't used to be like that. Okay, fantastic. Anything on visas that I didn't cover that you want to mention before we move on to a different subject?
No, that's basically it. You
Okay,
can ask for further information in my email that is going to be posted.
perfect. All right, let's jump in a little bit to, well, let's start with real estate. So let's start with some very basic questions. Obviously, Jose, I'm asking questions I know the answer to, but I'm asking it in that format so people can hear the answers from you. So let's jump into some of these questions. If I'm a foreigner, first of all, can I buy property in Ecuador? And if so, what are my rights? Do I have full rights, the same rights as an Ecuadorian would have? Or are there limitations? In some countries, for example, people have to partner with locals in order to get into the market, either to start a business or to buy property. So what are some of the rules there around foreign ownership of property here?
Well, our constitution grants the same rights for locals than to foreigners. A foreigner has the equal same rights as an Ecuadorian. There are no limits, no restrictions, no difference between a local and a foreigner as to property rights, civil rights come. So there used to be, when we were back in the 70s, we were under dictatorship, a military dictatorship. They passed a law that prohibited foreigners to own property at the beachfront property. But that was a long time ago. It's not longer like that. There are no difference between an Ecuadorian and a foreigner. You can start business, you can own property, you can make a living here with no difference than a local person.
And just off of that question, can I, as a foreigner, can I operate here through legal entities like a corporation or a nonprofit or some sort of other structure?
Of course, you can incorporate. You can have several corporations. You can have nonprofit organizations. No restrictions, no limits. Regarding to real estate, if you own land at least value in 42.5K, you can get your visa as an investor.
Yeah. And just to clarify that for people, that value is pegged to the minimum wage. So it goes up a little bit every year. I think when I first got here, I want to say it was maybe 28,000 or somewhere around 30,000. It's gone up a little bit every year. Last year was right around 40. Now it's 42 something, right? So next year it'll be a little higher. And that's how that works.
Yeah. You started with 25K, I think.
25. Okay. Yeah. All those years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And do I have to be a resident here to buy property, or does that not matter either?
That doesn't matter at all. You can come in with a tourist visa and you can buy land, you can incorporate. If you incorporate and your corporation, it's worth at least 42.5K, you can also get a visa on that basis, on that grounds.
Perfect. And is that true? So let me give you a hypothetical, right? If let's say I'm a foreigner, I've never been to Ecuador. I don't even want to come to Ecuador, but at some point in the future, I may, and I want to open bank accounts, buy some property, maybe start a business. Can we get all that done for them? Can you get all that done for them, for example, through a power of attorney, or do they have to physically come to the country?
To buy land, to incorporate, it's doable with the power of attorney, no problem. But to apply for a visa, it's a personal requirement to show at the visa office.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Is there anything, well, how about this? Are property rights here strong? You know, people worry about, people hear horror stories, not necessarily from Ecuador, but people hear horror stories about places that have weak property rights where squatters can sort of steal your land, or people can sort of find a way to steal land and things like that. Are property rights here respected and strong, or how would you describe that?
Well, we have a legal system based on ancient Roman law. So in order to acquire property, you need to make a deed before a notary and then have it registered at a public office, which is called the registrar, the property registrar, right?
Yep. Register, yep.
Excuse my pronunciation.
No, not at all.
So these are special requirements: going before a notary, sign the deeds before a notary, then have it registered in this public office, that make property or land transactions a very special thing. It's not that you go in a lawyer's office and then you sign any type of paper. No, we call it a solemnity. I don't know if that word exists in English.
I think so.
So regarding to property rights, yes, we have all type of legal actions to respect and to care or take care of owners, landowners. Of course, as in every other country, there are people that are trying to take advantage of other people, and especially in the countryside, the rural
Areas.
Outside of big cities, there's cases that people just go and invade land that it's from other people, but we have a special action for that. There's a specific office that takes care of illegal occupation of other people's property. Police comes and takes everybody out. Every legal process is long, but it's effective at the end. It's a matter of time. But I think from my point of view, that we have our rights as owners of land. We have very protected from the Constitution and the law point of view.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly, we've run a real estate company here since January of 2014. That's certainly been my experience. And in this region, I've never heard of a case like that that you're referring to. So the coast is a little bit different than where we are, but that's interesting. Okay, great.
That's interesting because there's like whole different cultures between the highlands and the coast. So yes, especially in the highlands, people are more caring for each other. They have respect for other people's rights more than in the coast. We in the coast, we see a few cases like that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And let's see. Do I want to get too specific on that? No, we probably don't have time for that today. So, okay. Let's talk a little bit about the process. So if I'm buying land here, let's say I'm hiring you. So I'm hiring an attorney, I'm hiring you. You're doing what? You're investigating the title, you're checking the property register, making sure there's no liens. We're going through the process. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, the first thing is the due diligence. So we have to make sure that the person who is selling the property, it's actually the owner. It's really the owner. We have to make sure there are no liens, such as mortgages with banks or trials over the property. I mean,
Yeah, what they call that in English is like liens or encumbrances or
liens.
anything like that.
Yes. Any controversy regarding the property, or if there are more owners, like a spouse, or when in cases of inheritance, we
Yeah.
make sure everything is in order for you to buy this land with no trouble at all.
Okay. And then once that, go ahead. Sorry.
Once you make sure everything is clear, then you can, start the negotiation process of price or payment, of how you're going to pay the price, all the details.
Sure.
First thing is to make sure property you're interested in has no trouble at all.
Yeah, and that due diligence process here is quick. It's it's much faster than in the States. Like that takes months back home, or at least a month. Here that just takes a few days normally. Is that yes. Accurate? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe a couple of weeks. Once you get the information from the property registrar, and then I do also a research on if there are any trials regarding that property, alleged owners or banks claiming the property to claim debts or whatever.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So once you're done researching title, and also just to mention to people, Ecuador does have the ability, similar to the States and other places, where you can do a contract, right? They call it here a promesa de compraventa. So, you can do a legally binding contract. If there's any terms, in the deal, that can all go into the promesa. That's something that's not used here super commonly. More often than not, people just go right to closing. But if there's terms involved, if there's due diligence periods, if there's, any sort of payment structure or things like that, that can go into the promesa. And they also have compraventa con hipoteca. So they also have the ability to place a lien or a mortgage into the title as part of the sale. So if you're buying a property that the owner is willing to finance, and let's say you're giving them half now, half in 6 months, or whatever the deal is, there are ways to structure that legally. That's extremely binding. Is there anything you would change or add to that?
Yes, extremely binding, because the same property you're buying, it's a warranty for the seller that you're going to pay the price. If you don't pay the price, he comes over the property.
Yeah. And also to clarify for people too, so where I come from, right, in the States, notaries are not very powerful. Not to say that notarizing a document doesn't mean something, but in the States, everybody's a notary. You can go to any bank and they stamp your document. It takes 2 seconds. Usually it's free. There's notaries all over the place. It doesn't mean much. In Ecuador, when the document is notarized, first of all, it's expensive. Costs a good amount of money to notarize anything here. But especially things that involve large sums of money, because they calculate it off of the value of the contract, essentially. And then notaries here are incredibly binding. If it's my understanding, they're basically above judges. Is that accurate?
Not really. In some items, in some areas, yes, but not really above judges.
Okay.
The role of the notary is to give public faith. What they say, that is. If you sign a deed the 23rd of March of the year 2022, and the notary says that you were before him, you cannot prove otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. And all right, so let's jump in. Unless you got anything else on real estate, let's jump in a little bit to corporate sort of business law.
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit. Ecuador, generally speaking, over the years that I've been here, and the political climate has changed a couple of times since I've been here. But Ecuador generally is not super high on the list of best places in the world to do business. It's been climbing recently, so it's getting better for sure. And the current president is very business friendly, and he's been cutting a lot of taxes, cutting a lot of regulations, which is great. In my experience, doing business here, we run a development company and a real estate company and a couple of other ventures, agricultural projects. In my experience here, the main obstacle, and this is not a legal conversation, but just to give people the information, the main obstacle here to doing business successfully is navigating the culture and the bureaucracy, because it's very different. Business here is done through personal relationships more than anything else.
Yes.
Really everything here is accomplished through personal relationships. And the bureaucracy is a total pain in the butt. And so, that is something you're up against in Ecuador. However, my experience, the counter side to that, the balance to that, is that there's many more opportunities here than what I was used to back home. It's a much less exploited business, market as far as business opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities. And I don't find the tax system to be super burdensome. There really is, we've had some years where we've done quite well financially, and our accountant has always managed to keep our tax burden very low. So let's talk a little bit about doing business as a foreigner, taxes, and sort of, some of those legalities.
Sure. I agree with you when you say that the climate, the environment for doing business in Ecuador, it's hard because of the bureaucracy. There's a lot of regulations. There's a lot of paperwork to be done, and that creates a harsh environment for doing business. That's the main con from my point of view to do business in Ecuador. Especially if you don't know the culture.
Right.
So you will need advice, legal advice, and a very good accountant to start. And we have a recent law which was passed back on 2020 for entrepreneurs. And it's called Ley de Emprendimiento. It's basically for new entrepreneurships. We as a country are looking for people who are, we're willing to start businesses in Ecuador, and they get special treatment in taxes, on imports, on hiring labor, on getting financing. Basically, it's for entrepreneurships that do not have over $1 million sales per year, and no more than 50 employees. For this type of entrepreneurships, there's a special law that passed, which has a lot of benefits. For example, let's say you have a watermelon farm and you start selling.
We happen to have a watermelon farm.
I know, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Oh, okay.
and you start selling your production to the big supermarkets like Mi Comisariato or Supermaxi, which is like, the big guys, right? Mm-hmm. They usually pay your invoices up to 90 days for all the providers, the suppliers of these big market chains. They make them wait as long as 90, even 120 days. With this special law for new entrepreneurships, they have to pay no more than 30 days in this type of businesses. They can also hire people by the hour, by half time, by, there's a very good legal frame for new businesses. And of course, the main benefit it's regarding taxes. It's regarding taxes. You can deduct as much as more than regular businesses or business that are already operating. You can deduct more from your income tax. And I agree with you also that this president that we have right now, which is Guillermo Lasso, it's business friendly. Of course, he comes he was a banker. He knows how to make business from as an entrepreneur point of view. So he just released like 400 items back in 2021 from import taxes. We have cheaper things now that we don't produce, especially technology, computers, cell phones, and that kind of stuff. There's a tax exemption for over 400 and more items with this Guillermo Lasso president. So yes, I think that we have very good opportunities to make business here. There are much areas undeveloped that are opportunities for people who are, have the resources, the knowledge, and of course the will to do business here.
Yeah, and just to touch on that for a minute, Ecuador has not been politically and monetarily stable for all that long, right? So if you go back to, I guess Correa came to power in 1998, I think. I'm sorry, 2006. I was going to say 2008, but right, 2006. Prior to that, Ecuador had multiple revolutions. In the 2000s, they had, you would know the numbers, something like 7 presidents in 9 years or something like that. And then once Correa took over in 2006, Ecuador has been politically stable since then. So it's only 15, 16 years now of political stability. And Ecuador had a currency collapse in 1999, 2000. So it's only been, just over 20 years of monetary stability. Ecuador had dollarized, and it's been, 14, 15, whatever it's been, of political stability. So as a result of that history, and a lot of people, people who are from here, like yourself, having lived through that, a lot of people are hesitant to invest in long-term things. And so what that does is it creates opportunity in all kinds of industries and all kinds of opportunities for entrepreneurs, for business people who don't have that same perspective of sort of fear of long-term, stability and things like that. You can come into, a lot of Ecuadorians, for example, Jose, they invest in Florida, right? They invest in the US, they invest in other countries. They put their money in their assets and their money in other countries. And the opportunities here, partly as a result of that are staggering. So it's really, to me as an entrepreneur, I was doing business in New York. There's opportunities in New York, but there's so much competition. The level of competition is just is amazing. So many people are after the same opportunities, whereas here, there's a dozen ideas I have in this area. Now, Guayaquil is much different, but there's a dozen ideas I have in this area that nobody's doing, and I think they would all be very successful. And, we're doing some of them, but it's really an interesting place, to be an entrepreneur. I don't know if there's a question in there, but do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I totally agree with you. You are in the Vilcabamba area, Loja area, right? Mm-hmm. Which is far south of the country. And there, from my understanding, there are wind farms developing over there. right? Have you heard
Yeah,
of them?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I saw a solar. They have a little solar farm out in Catamayo that I saw. The wind farms. I've heard some rumors about that. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure you're right.
And there are also solar farms developing on the coast. And we are turning into all these energy industry, the green energy industry, which was a year or 2 years ago completely unexistent. It's now developing, and there's a huge project of selling energy to the solar energy to the state. There's a big English investment on a solar farm. There are many areas. We have also the cáñamo. It's not cannabis, but it's a similar plant as cannabis, which recently was legalized in Ecuador. And there's a whole big industry around this plant that is developing right now. And there are big opportunities in a lot of areas that they can be taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also an interesting dynamic here too, where, the foreign mindset tends to be a little bit different than the Ecuadorian mindset when it comes to business. And so taking advantage of sort of the foreign market as a foreigner, is really something you can do here, because what you might be selling something into the foreign market that's really attractive to foreigners, but Ecuadorians might not be into. And so those kinds of things can be unexploited as well. I want to ask you a question on a personal note, but I'm sure other people will be interested too. We're actually looking at the CBD oil, business right now. Is that something that you have ability to help with? I know the licenses are it's a very difficult process, I understand, to get the licenses. Again, going back to the bureaucracy conversation, is that something you have any experience with or can point people in the right direction?
Yes, not in my practice, but I have associates who do this type of procedures. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. All right, Jose, I'm getting close to running out of time. I'm sure you are as well. Do you have any, we'll definitely put all your contact info in the description. So if people want to reach out to you, again, I highly recommend Jose. I've known him since 2013, and he's always done great work for, anything that we've done together. If people, so people can reach out to you, is there anything else that I missed or anything else you want to mention to people before we wrap up?
I want to thank you very much for this interview, and I'm available at my email and my phone number via WhatsApp for any type of questions of the audience. Thank you very much for the interview.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, I'm Jesse Baer of Abundant Living Ecuador. If you're looking for real estate in Southern Ecuador, we'd love to help you with that. We also have a development company. If you're an investor interested in investing here in Ecuador, that's something we can help you with also. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.